time, all right, and a lot of convincing. Well, not that much convincing, even though everyone that I ever told that I didn't watch this show to thought I was absolutely crazy. But yes, it's true. I finally watched Breaking Bad. Oh my God. So this is a show that came out right around the time I was maybe just about ready to leave high school. And I remember hearing about it and actually watching the first season of it way back when. And I thought it was pretty cool, but I was really turned away about, how he was dealing with cancer and all that. I had a grandma that passed away from that a couple years prior to that. And I just didn't want to watch a show about that, although I liked the criminal aspect to it. I liked how Chewie from Blood In, Blood Out was like a major drug dealer in this show called Tuco. And, it had a lot of aspects that I personally love in movies and cinema and television show because, Breaking Bad, it's a TV show, but it's very cinematic, right? And it just plays with so many cool techniques. Like there's a lot of handheld happening in this show, a lot of shots from afar, almost like someone's watching. And I fell in love with it once I actually gave it a chance in the last couple of weeks here. So I'm just going to kind of briefly coast across some of the best parts, in my opinion, the stuff that I really liked about the show. First of all, kudos to the casting team that thought to put Bryan Cranston together with this Aaron Paul character. To me, I'd only ever seen him, not even consciously, but he was in Van Wilder, in a totally 2-second role, but just kind of once. I think he was actually in the trailer of Van Wilder as well, but nonetheless, here's some of the things that I really liked about it. I really loved. This is totally minor, but I loved how in the show, in order to give a sense of time passing, they did almost like that GTA 5 thing where, even though this is way before GTA 5, but just like a shot of the sky or like a skyline, cityscape, something like that and it would be time lapse. So you'd see all the traffic, all the lights going off, the sun rising, the sun setting, all that. I thought that was really cool, man. I've always really liked that technique. Trying to not get into everything. Oh, here's something totally random. It's one of the last notes I took, but so Bill Burr is in this show as sort of like an associate of Saul, who's this crooked lawyer. This crooked lawyer's got all these different henchmen and stuff like that he has do different tasks, but Bill Burr is in this, and there's this really sort of fat black dude. His name's Huel. And could you imagine, because they share a few scenes together and their chemistry is awesome. There's a scene where they open up Walt's safe of money. This is not a spoiler because they're not robbing it. They're there to help him move it, even though that's a spoiler in its own right. But anyways, Huel, this big black dude, he's like, I gotta do it. And he just lays down on the money, and Bill Burr's like, what are you doing? Who are you, Scrooge McDuck? Pulling a total Bill Burr. And he's like, you know what, fuck it. And he lays down with him. And I'm thinking, could you imagine if Huel was, if Patrice O'Neal was alive at the time? I think he actually was. I don't think he died till about 2009. But this was a later season. So I think Patrice was dead by now. But could you imagine if it was Patrice and Bill Burr in fucking Breaking Bad laying on a pile of money? And just I think that was a missed opportunity. Unfortunately, it could have never been a thing, but... we got, okay, one of the things that pissed me off about the show, so I'm talking about this show assuming that you've seen it, okay? Everyone knows the story. It's about a chemistry teacher who gets lung cancer, and he has to he doesn't have to, but he decides to start cooking meth in order to, save up a bunch of money for his family. So that's what that's about. Anyways, in case you were sleeping under a rock like I was all these years. But there's a scene in the later seasons where the wife, who's a total cunt, I fucking hated her. I thought she was so just she did a good job at being a bitch, okay? But anyway, she pulls a knife on Walt, and then she stabs him in the hand. And then Flynn, who's the son, he's like, why'd you, he gets on the horn and calls the cops, and he's like, yeah, my dad just threatened my mom with a knife. And it's like, dude, didn't you just see what happened? She clearly attacked him first, but he's so fucking sucking Hank's dick so much that he's like, you killed Uncle Hank? Oh man, end that guy. Again, great actor, very effective, just I hated him, okay? Robert Forster is in this show. Robert Forster plays sort of a bigger part in the movie El Camino, which I'll get to in a minute. But he plays this dude that can make you disappear. So if you give him an I think it was like 125 grand, he can give you a location to live at, new name, new IDs, all that stuff, and he ends up helping out people like that. I loved him. I love Robert Forster. I think he's a terrific actor. I've never really been disappointed by any film that I've seen him in. So that was a bonus. This is totally minor, but at one point, I think it's a cop, and he's like going to check on this house, this old woman, and when he does his call sign on the radio, he says KDK-12. Now, KDK-12 is the call sign in The Shining. That's what they say over the radio in order to get a hold of the sheriffs. I just was like, that's awesome, man. I'm like sitting here by myself, like wishing I could just be like, fuck, that's from The Shining. You know what I mean? So I thought that was cool. There's a really crazy moment in the show where, Jesse's girlfriend, she has a small son named Brock, and he becomes poisoned, and Jesse thinks it's because of the poison he had stashed in his cigarette pack, which are poisoned in their own right, but it comes to be that he was actually poisoned by this flower, and at the end of that season, there's a shot of Walt's backyard, and you see that flower is sitting in his backyard, so you know that it was Walt that poisoned this kid, and you're just like, whoa, like, Walt is slowly getting more and more fucked up and just like kind of money hungry and ridiculous. There's a really cool moment that I loved where at the beginning of the episode, Jesse's driving around this sort of ghetto, and he's just throwing piles of money all around, and there's this old dude who, like, he's getting ready to go to work. He turns on his truck and he sees this pile of cash, and then almost like a breadcrumb fashion, he goes around, he's picking up all these bills, and then he sees Aaron Paul sitting on a swing set, and he's just like totally out of his fucking noodle at that point, because he'd been fucked around and fucked over so many times at that point. One of the coolest things I thought about the show was they kind of played a bit of an homage to The Godfather, the scenes where Michael has all these gangsters take all the five bosses or the four other bosses taken out, like at the same time, like during his son's communion or whatever, being baptized, some bullshit like that. I'm not fucking Catholic, I don't know. But Walt does that with these witnesses that could, easily put him in prison. I just thought that was really cool. It was almost like a blood in, blood out kind of thing where, there's a scene where Miklo has all these murders, take place in a small succession of time, which I thought was really cool. There's this really cool dynamic of these two brothers, these twin brothers, these Mexican dudes who are like hitmen. They don't talk, except for flashbacks when they're kids, but everything about them I thought was awesome. I would watch an entire show about just those two guys. They wear like the cowboy boots, but with like a snake emblem on like the toe of them. Like, and they kill people with an axe. And there's even a part where they're gonna kill Hank, who's the DEA brother-in-law of Walter White. And he's like got the gun pointed at him, and he's like, you know what, too easy. And he goes back to his trunk and he grabs a fucking axe. And there's even a crazy scene where these two brothers are like in Walt's house, and they get called away by one of my favorite aspects of the show. There's this sort of a KFC ripoff, like this El Pollos Hermanos, some shit like that. Like these, it translates to like the Chicken Brothers or something like that. But there's this chain of chicken restaurants, and it's being ran by this guy who's like a total gangster, total badass, super organized kind of guy. And he just texts you like polos, meaning like come to the restaurant, I gotta talk to you. So these guys are literally about to kill Walt, and they get a text, so they split, and Walt has like no idea what was gonna happen. Thought that was really badass. And even there's a scene with those two guys when they're going to buy bulletproof vests off this dude, and they're like, do they work? And he's like, shit, yeah, they work. He's one of these kind of like, hick types that won't shut the fuck up. And that's one of the rare times the brothers do talk. And sure enough, the guy he's like, yeah, I'm wearing one right now. And they shoot him. And he's like, you broke my rib, you son of a bitch. And they just throw the money on him, and then they just split. I love that shit. Now, my favorite part of the season, of the series, not including El Camino, was definitely when Gus, who's the owner of the chicken spot, he's murdered with a pipe bomb. And I gotta also say, there's a bunch of people from Scarface in this film or in this show. Like Manny is like this total gangster that's from Mexico, and he gets killed via like, what was it, poisoning? I think he got poisoned, but yeah, he got poisoned. And also Hector Salamanca, who's the guy in the wheelchair. He's in Scarface. He's the guy that Tony Montana kills in the car because Tony doesn't want to kill the kids. And you think I kill a woman and 2 kids? Like, fuck, man. I just thought that was like, I'm like, this is awesome, man. This is such a good show. But Gus, the chicken guy, is going to meet with Hector Salamanca, the guy in the wheelchair who despises him. And Walter White knows he despises him. Walter White and this guy have their own history that's pretty ugly. But they decide to work together. This he's had a stroke. He can't even talk. He's got to communicate through like a bell and all this shit. So they orchestrate this assassination of this Gus guy, and it's with a pipe bomb. So the pipe bomb goes off, and then you see the door open, or the door gets blown to shit. It gets fucking into the distance. But Gus comes walking out, and the like he comes walking out like this. So like he's walking out, the camera pans like that. And his one side of his face is like skull, and he's like adjusting himself and all this, and then he just falls over and dies. And I just thought that was really badass, man. So moving on, because I thought season 5 was okay. I thought probably the best moment in the entire season was when Walt, he's Robert Forster has given him a new identity kind of thing, and he's way out in these mountains in like a cabin, like basically my dad's wet dream is where this guy's staying. Also, my dad's birthday is in 20 minutes from right now, this recording. But anyways, there's a scene where Walt, he's on chemo up there, and Robert Forster's bringing him the chemo and all that kind of shit. And Walt says, I'll give you $10,000 if you hang out for a couple of hours. And Robert Forster ends up doing it. For 1 hour, he says, I can stay for 1 hour for 10 grand, and they like start playing cards, and it's just like, so it's like, man, like, because Walter, like throughout the show, he's like transitioning from like this like, happy-go-lucky kind of guy into this like hardcore gangster, and then it's a moment like that reminds you that this guy's actually, despite what he's done in the last year, he's actually a good guy, a decent guy. And it makes you feel bad for him. You go from feeling like, yo, Walt, you need to settle the fuck down, to like, damn, Walt, like that's hurt, man. And there's also, oh fuck, I can't believe I almost forgot to mention these guys in this video. So Jesse has these 2 buddies, Badger and Skinny P, and the whole series, I'm like, these guys are gonna fuck them over somehow. These guys are gonna fuck over Walt and Jesse. They're gonna fuck them over because they're junkies, right? But they never do. And they're actually throughout the entire series, and they help out Jesse a lot. They even help out Walt at certain points. But Walt does kind of fuck over Jesse. He has him. He basically sells them to these skinheads in a way, and Jesse is basically being held by these skinheads for like a year, or for like quite a few months, to the point where he's like growing a huge beard, long hair, and they're making him cook the blue meth. And it's pretty sad and pretty hardcore shit, to be honest with you. But at the final episode, Walt helps him break out and, basically gets his money back and all this shit because the skinheads like stole his money. Like I said, I assume that you'd seen this fucking show, but it wasn't until I watched El Camino, which is the 2-hour film that's like the spin-off film, not to be confused with like Better Call Saul, which I haven't finished yet. I've only watched 1 episode of it, to be honest, but El Camino just picks off right from the end of the series, and I was like, bam, this is a fucking roller coaster of a film, man. And it's all about just Jesse just getting the fuck out of Dodge, just trying to get to Alaska, and he doesn't have enough money to pay off Robert Forster, so he goes and does some greasy stuff, and fuck, man, I fell in love with that film. I think El Camino is better than the entirety of season 5, maybe even season 4, unless that Gus murder is in season 4, because I think that was the best thing that happened in the show. But I thought it was so powerful, And like there's a scene, like to bring up Skinny P and Badger again, like Jesse shows up at Skinny P's house, and him and Badger and him are just shooting the shit, and they're like, whoa, what the fuck, Jesse's here. And Jesse's like very jumpy and scared because he's been held captive for so long. And you know, Skinny P and Badger help him out, and then it boils down to just Skinny P and Jesse sitting there, and Jesse says, why are you helping me out? And Skinny P says, he's like, dude, you're my hero. And I just thought that was like so badass, and I was so thankful they didn't just turn him into like a little bullshit junkie asshole character. Like he was Jesse's real friend. Him and Badger were his real friends, despite all the fake friends Jesse had throughout the show. Badger, Skinny P, stand-up dudes, especially Skinny P, because the whole show I'm like, this guy's gonna fuck everything up. And no, when he says like, dude, you're my hero, and he gives him his hat and everything, his Skinny P's like, here, take this hat, man, so they don't recognize you or something. And he's like, why are you helping me? And he like, dude, you're my hero. Like, dude, what the fuck? What a show, man. I'm pissed off myself for not watching the show when it originally aired, but at the same time, I'm happy I got to kind of binge it, you know what I mean? And then watch El Camino, and oh, fuck. Like, I would recommend watching El Camino on its own, because it like, even if, you know, I'll probably watch it again, like within this year, just to live that experience again, because I know what happened with the show, but I just think that movie is so powerful. And shout out to the bully from Like Mike who plays Todd, and he's just like a dipshit throughout the show, but goddamn. And real quick before I end this video, The Sopranos is a show that I'm going to be delving into again. I've watched I think I watched 2 entire seasons, the first 2 seasons, but I got to restart them. Me and my girlfriend want to watch them from scratch. But the reason I bring them up is because they're doing I think it's a spin-off movie, and it's going to star James Gandolfini's son as the young Tony Soprano. So we're dealing with the Sopranos prequel. So that should be badass. But anyways, I appreciate everybody for watching this video and watching all my videos, subscribing, leaving comments, all that stuff, man. I think it's really badass. So with that being said, you guys are my heroes. Adios.